Alright, and here we go. Hello and welcome to Bug-Free Productions. Today's going to be pretty simple, just some different things. Hope everybody's day is going bug-free. And today is just going to be looking at a couple different things. With JSON saving, pretty much picking up. Means I'm going to have to go find that thing. Could be that scene. That's what I'm thinking of. Tests. It's gonna be. It's actually not in test yet, is it? Oh, it is the shooting scene because I just threw it on the freaking capsule. Okay. So if I remember right, last thing that we left off for the JSON should be that it exists in this capsule. Read new labeled NA, which is labeled given an ID. And it's not a good way to do that, but we'll get fixing that in a little bit. Actually do something. Or rather, we'll use it as a placeholder. Yeah, we're gonna set up some other things when we plug this into the factory pattern and our object pooling pattern. Okay, that's not. I have itchy eyes and some itchy allergies, so I'm gonna be a little weird with my eyes, I guess. Anyway, so that's what we got today. If you're watching on YouTube, you're watching on so if you're watching on YouTube or watching VOD, I have my schedule on twitch.tv jib at BFB. And all the previous videos, including the one where I started doing this JSON setup, are over on the Bug-Free Productions YouTube. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started, I think. So let's try and get off screen. Should do decently. There we go. And I'm going to make sure to get my thing off of there. I'll leave that down there. I usually leave the music on for streams, but for, since since we're doing programming today and not doing art, I'm gonna turn it off. What's this thing? All right, fruit. Anyway, so we'll just be doing that. If you like these and want to follow along, I don't go too fast, but I do not always do everything the way a lot of people would expect. For the most part, I do, but for a couple things, I just have a few preferences I'd rather not change too much. And if you find videos helpful, remember to like, subscribe on YouTube, or follow on Twitch. And if you have a question or suggestion, it's best to leave them in the comments on YouTube. That would be the best way for me to be able to see them. And we'll go ahead and get started on some events. I don't need to edit any of this. It's all just labeled to run start, callback, yeah, which is fine. So this should, does it debug? So it just debugs the objects. Let's open that up. So where does that occur? Be this line 29, log placement ID. So that debugs this object placement object.id. Not to be confused with the string that is ID that we pass into on this line. So placement equals find object placements. That finds that. Because that's not necessarily very useful either. We'll edit this a little bit back and forth as we go. Because the main idea is to get a factory that instantiates a bunch of placeable objects based on a placement object placement we read in, which we started with the other one. So right here we are confirming that everything is read correctly. Read rot. Doesn't look like this is referenced anywhere, which is probably what we're going to do here. What we're actually going to do in on enable. Pro TE protected, virtual void, virtual void, just because I like protected methods for currently, in case I want to inherit this in from somewhere else later instead of having to create an object and adapt it. At least for prototyping, this goes a lot faster for me. And we're going to go open some, what would we want to name this? This is on enable. On enable, which is a built-in method in Unity for mono behavior objects, which this is. We go ahead and on enable, I probably want to read rot. Read rot. So that's fine. Probably going to go ahead and just control X some of this real quick. And I'm just going to do some of this so that I can do let's do read pose. Read pose. And just so all that's working, boy, weather's terrible today. Very windy. I can even still hear it inside this this room here. Granted, it is a room with a window, so read rot, read pose, and those are basically reading and setting the position that we defined earlier. If you're looking along and you're like, hey, this looks like something I could use, definitely go check out that first one, which is like which will be on my channel in the bike race tutorial. I think that's what it's called. And it'll be called something like what's so special about JSON. So what would we do with this? So this is pretty much, let's just get rid of the start. Don't really need a start anymore. Perfectly fine. So this works good. What I need to do now, and I talked about it earlier, so I have a generic factory. Cool, right? Makes generic things, does it in a generic way. What would we want to do? So I essentially need to make an abstract factory, which will, or at least what I'll call an abstract factory, might not be quote unquote correct way to phrase that. But what it's going to do is it's going to take a factory, take a bunch of factories. And those factories will have a new property, which I'm going to code down here because it's accessible and never writable. So I'm going to do something like protected, and I might want to change this one a little bit. Virtual void. No, I want it to be a virtual type of string likely. Why a string? Because this is basically going to be item ID. So item ID, which we did save as a string. We could have saved as an integer, all of that sort of fun stuff. But I'd rather not, because if I do want to use numbers, that's fine. But if I want to use text, that's also fine because it's an ID tag, kind of, and I want to be able to put in like some descriptions, abbreviated, instead of doing a bunch of, numbers and keeping track of what that equals, and then maybe making more JSON objects. Let's just keep it simple for testing, and then if we really want to build it out later. Item ID, and this thing is going to be returning a get. It's going to be return, and basically it's going to return our factory item. So here's the other thing. So we kind of have to decide where this poolable object is going to fall, because say I want to do I make a new factory that's like placeable object factory, which is a placeable object that inherits from factory item, which would be pretty quick. Or do I make something where it's like, or do I add on to factory item to the game object? Because we really only get fi. Generic pool. So factory item use poolable can do all of that. Accessors item ID, which would be the game object, factory item, and then the item would have to have an ID. So do we want to add ID onto all the items, or do we want to just create new? And I think the option for that is actually a little bit different. What I would do, since we're trying to do it quick and do testing, I would probably throw in, so what would it be? Protected, would it be? It would be a string returns, that would be the factory item. Let's get rid of this return right now. Just work us on what we're accessing. Factory item dot we have a name for it. Did I set this up already? No, because that's a game object, so technically it does have a name field. So it'd be dot okay. 1 second here, actually. I gotta make a check quick. And we're back. I just had a quick check on something. Not particularly dire, but it's freezing months, you know? Let's check. So we have this. What was the factory item? And we'll do a get component. Get component, which will look for a type of poolable objects. And it won't be poolable, it'll be like placeable. Placeable object. So a string can be null. It's not an in. Can't it be? I think. Let's check. String a string. Is it nullable? It's nullable. Okay. So if I can get a null out of it, then I'll just let it return whatever the result of this is. Throw in some extra brackets. And as always, if you drop into live chat, feel free to drop in any questions or anything, or just say hi. Have the poolable object construction dot, and this I kind of need to familiarize myself with again. I do have ID. So if this happens on enable, this happens before enable, which means okay, because you think about it, you're reading in. These are all objects that are not mono behavior. So ID being what's looking for let's just do an accessors which is going to be another getter setter. This is gonna be public, and this is public. I can't spell, type, or any of that stuff. Public. I might want to rewrite this later. So virtual, and it's going to be a string. String. And it's just going to be ID. It's not going to be this. I don't actually want to use this in any of my anything I set in the inspector. This was just for testing. This isn't going to actually do anything because I don't want it. Placement is what I want because that's the object that gets filled in. Get return placement should be all good. That's placement dot ID. Okay, so there we're getting it from our placement ID object. If placement is null, ID will be null. This will return null. So then the only thing to do is in here we'll add an if check. Which will be, hold back a bit. So place my ID, ID. Need the item ID so that the other one can look for his. Basically, this is an ID so that we can get an item ID for the object that's in a existing reference or as a scriptable object that's a little more dynamic. Um, get, so that does a little more dynamic, allowing the abstract factory once we build it to take in, get this, compare it with what it's shown, and then if it's the correct ID, it spawns it, which there's a more efficient way to do it. Um, one that requires planning, and when you work on it 1 to 2 hours a week, uh, that doesn't happen too often. So we have get, which does this, which does that, which line. And this doesn't return, so we just kind of return it. So we return the factory item.get component of this. Because all we're really looking to see is what this ID is right now. Now we'll actually get an abstract factory, which will in turn just take in a generic factory. So actually what would probably be most effective is if we created a new factory inherited from generic factory and with the new asset menu, of course. And then added this in would be the most effective, I believe. But we'll just deal with it the way it is. Why is the computer running so hot? It's fine, the fan just seems loud. Cool. We have, so there's that. That's what I would do. I'm gonna do it kind of loose and then clean it up if I have time, because, yeah, there's no time to think of a new solution in 20 minutes. It's better just to polish what you have then. So we'll keep going ahead. Useful object, which this is on the capsule. Which now this won't interfere with the existing factory pattern or factory items. This should run on that. The other item would be pooled. Yeah, so we would probably want to do that. We're still going to want to do that actually. What I was saying is make another factory. So to make another factory, we're just going to go and to Unity and go project, and we're going to go scripts, SEO params. Is that where I put them? Color palette, color swatch, ground check, move state, user cam state. Scripts, body cam, camera, factory probably, factory SEO, factory item, generic factory. And then here's my actual factory items. So let's create a C# script. We'll call this abstract factory, ABSTRAC. And again, this probably isn't a true abstract factory, but it is the closest name I could think of currently to my use case. This is 4/20, something like that. Save her up. I'm going to use a namespace. So this is going to be in the namespace of Bug-Free Productions, and this will probably be tools. Tools. I'm just going to go throw this at the bottom of that. I'm going to delete my generated crap. And we're going to inherit from the generic factory. No, if this is the abstract factory, we won't do that. This would in turn be a scriptable object. SCRI scriptable object. Because abstract factory is separate from that. Let's go ahead and get another one open while I'm thinking about it. Create C# script. This will be placeable factory. Placeable factory. Factory for placeables. Yeah. I don't like. Yeah. Placeable OBJ factory. Because I just hate the idea of it saying placeable factory and then me trying to figure out why I can't place it in the scene or somebody else doing that. So placeable object factory, I think might fix some of that. Might think of a better name later. Let's go ahead, open, and then we'll paste. What do I want to use for a namespace on here? Namespace of probably tools as well. Most of this is going to be in tools just because I'm going to reuse this. I'm not going to just throw this chunk away. God willing, if I ever figure out how to, do it as a, put it up as a asset into GitHub, if I ever figure that out. Didn't go very well last time, but there's always a chance. This one inherits from abstract factory, from generic factory. From generic factory SEO. The thing about that is it will also need its own menu, LLC, which then it's under that by the class. And then this should actually be Control RR. Let's do underscore shift SCO. That fix it. And same thing with this one, Control RR. Underscore SCO. Okay. Now, why does that work? Or why the SCO? Just simply, it's a scriptable object. I do that to kind of try and help myself keep track of what I'm doing. So, with that, scriptable object SEO, let's grab this one, Control C, Control V, and then Control V, Control S. Abstract factory, I need the same thing done. because even though it inherits everything correctly, it still doesn't have any way to create an asset menu unless you type this in. So Control E and Control E, Control S. So this should all be good. Control Shift S, save all tabs in Visual Studio. So does this need to really do anything yet? It should probably have a, and I'm just gonna make sure my audio is running right. Yep, that's all running fine. Why is the odd? What am I doing here? Okay, the fun thing about having too many windows open. Let's pause that. There we go. Okay, this is gonna be like a serialized field. Serialized field of a type of SEO factories. So this is generic. This is placeable. No, it is generic factory. Um, yeah, so the idea is abstract factory SEO. So this is gonna have a list of our generic factories. Generic factory SEO. And this is actually gonna be S, and we're gonna make it plural in the form of array. Nah, nope. We're gonna make it plural in the way of list. So why is that? That's so that I don't have a reference issue and I can just go new list. Because if I don't do that, it'll look at an array, and if there's nothing set up, it'll be a null reference rather than an empty reference. So it's better to expect a list than be expecting an array that may or may not exist at all. So what if we, so if we have that, then we can just throw in the generic factories. Well, where does that put our placeable object factory here, right? Well, this placeable object factory will still be able to go into the abstract factory because it is in fact inheriting and is a generic factory SEO. So we can throw that directly in here, and we can manage all of our placeable object behavior in this kind of script, and that way they don't bleed into the other, even though I'm going to have, so I can have one abstract factory that has multiple, like, non. It doesn't necessarily have to have all of the stuff that a placeable one does. The other thing is I could just change my factory item to be that way, but I mean not my factory. I could just change my generic factory to be able to do this type of stuff, the poolable object. But for objects that are only ever going to be in memory, that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. So I'm just gonna. That's kind of why I want it to like pull from and not push to, rather. It's typically how I like things to flow. I like to pull from my past classes and not push new concepts into them. So, placeable object factory, abstract factory. We have a couple factories here. Abstract factory, basically all you need to do is have that. You need to have a method. So that would be in bars. And this would be like methods. Okay, and what does it need to do? So we actually need to override a couple things in here. Or not override here. Here we just need to create some new methods. So it'll probably be a public, because somebody will have to call this. Public list. So it's not going to be a list. It's going to be a public virtual, not going to return anything, I don't think. Void. I don't know what's the deal with my typing. My typing's terrible. I don't hit keys in the correct order, or even the correct keys most times. Let's just call this, so do like SEAWN. We'll do like let's just look at my generic factory. What's the terminology I use there? Create item. Create item. Create item is going to be like a string, because it's going to take in that ID, right? String, so it's going to be AID. And then it's going to go through we're going to get a string value, so string, don't want to use an ID again. Let's do factory, so FACT ID, fact ID equal, not an ID, it's going to be equal to, okay. Current idea is a string comes in. It's unnecessary. And I know that I'm going to delete it later. But for my own stupidity, let's put this up here. Let's just call this SRCHSTRING. Search string is equal to AID. That's held. Fact ID is equal to, let's do null, equals nothing currently. And then, so we're going to hold ID to search. Search for ID, we are looping through. And we could do like a for loop, because fors are faster than whiles, even if they recur a lot. So for each get a line. For each generic factory SEO, GF, generic factory SEO in generic factory SEOs, we loop, we have facts ID is equal to is equal to crap. No ability to hold on to my focus. Generic factory SEO is equal to I'm so tired, man. I wish I could do these earlier, but I can't figure out a time. No, there is no time to do them. We have a factory SEO, which is gonna have that reference that we just put in there of having the object ID. Because let's look at that. We just put in the item ID, right? So that's kind of doing the job of that. So what we really need to do is just from the GF get our ID. Did I screw that up somehow? I need should be public. Public virtual. Yes. Item ID. And after we get that item ID, so change ID check against is going to be then we're going to check against what does that do? So then we have check against search ID. And if you're looking at it thinking, I don't know how this is going to work, you're not alone on that one. I don't think this is quite going to work right. Because if we think about it again, and again, this is kind of why I chose to do the stream and record them rather than to do YouTube videos, because if it takes me this long to do it, you can imagine how much longer it would take for me to find another couple hours to get these published and edited. So the fun thing about that is that it needs to go to poolable object, right? Where is that? Poolable object back here. Let's move this up here so it's not lost. The thing about this is this ID goes to placement ID. So when does placement ID take place? It takes place on enable. Well, if you're taking an ID reference of a thing, if we're having, let's just look at an example. Prefabs, bullets, bullet. So like in here where we serialize some stuff like bullet effect, you can imagine if that C# script won't exist at that time, so it won't have anything accessed at that time because this will be empty, because we can't fill it until the script goes, like, until our start runs ish. It happens about the same time. There might be a way to get around that, but that's not at the level we want to really get into it for this kind of functionality. At least I don't. People who've done this more can probably do it pretty easy, but I don't really mess with it too hard. My thing's more in timing and frames. After it's been started rather than trying to circumvent any of the Unity stuff. So just go back. So we are going to have to end up actually using this ID. So let's just put it right in there now. It is just going to be a simple return ID, which is unfortunate because this isn't how I would prefer it to be. Reason being, I want the ID to be based off the placement ID that's coming in, not like the placement object that's coming in, not the thing we enter in the inspector, because if we misspell stuff, it messes up the designers and they can't fix it. Certain kinds of designers can't fix it. So, like a game designer probably would, art designer probably not so much. So, Control-Shift-S. So that's unfortunate, but it's what we're going to have to live with, I think. Which as you start programming more and more, you'll realize, I mean, there's a lot of slick ways to do things, and sometimes we just have to live with what it is. Because of time. Check against ID search. Did I Control Z away something here? No, here's the for each, and then we check against it. So if search ID S R, just go grab the damn thing. It's not a typing day for me. It's definitely not my motor skills day. So let's go ahead and use this. And so if that is equivalent, right, probably return. No, I don't want to return just yet. But we do want to do we do want to call and probably just tell it to create an object. Which would be create item, which would be So factory ID would then be GF ID, which would then be the current one we're looking at. So we want to use the one if it is equivalent. So it'd be simply GF dot create item. Now, is there anything I need to worry about on this? Yeah, it has a transform. Okay, so that's okay, because we'll probably just make a loader script that goes to abstract factory and is like, okay, load it. Um, yeah, so that's probably what I want to do there anyway. Worst case scenario, I have to come back later and comment this out until I can fix it next week. So, not too terribly worrisome. I don't have a transform to even throw in there. Create item, so I'm probably gonna have to go create item. Probably don't want to do anything. Probably want to put it right in create item. So I'm gonna need a transform. And this will actually prevent me from having that issue I earlier discussed. TRANSF form of not having that line or having to comment it out later. ATF. Yeah, ATF. And this one doesn't commit crimes. ATF, and then we save just in case. So then this should all work correctly, should run the spawning, and should still see no issue. So poolable objects, and actually at this point I might even say that I don't want I might even go back and say that I want my factory item to just have an ID that I can get. Um, so I might decide that I want that in here at some point. Let's keep going and see how that holds up. So for each, so this just does the thing, calls create item on a different object. That is all perfectly fine. Can't do anything on start. So what do we need? We're gonna need that other class I talked about, loader. There's gonna need to be in assets and scripts and it's gonna need to be in probably in JSON. Create scriptable objects, abstract factory. No, C# script. Away. Loader. CAB. Placeable. I don't know. Placeable OBJ loader. Probably didn't spell that right. That's fine. Can't really read it with that small a text up there anyway. PLAC. I think it's place able, right? Might not even be able. Might be able. Did it work correctly? Yes. Okay. Placeable object loader. Let's do an object, right? So it's going to be first of all, let's do our normal comments, which are our backspace enter slash it's gonna be 12/4/2024, and it's gonna be a Control S, enter is fine, and we'll get rid of this, and we'll throw open a namespace line here. Namespace, and we're using namespace of bug-free productions, or at least I am, because it's my namespace. And this is going to be tools again. Pretty much everything today is in tools again. Placeable object loader. So this is a mono behavior, because what this is going to do is it's going to go throw sit in the scene and just wait till it's told to load something. And once I load it, it'll run and do things. So which this next section is probably going to run into tomorrow, not tomorrow's, next week's anyway, but that's the nature of when you have to use factory pattern is you gotta get a large amount figured out before you can start jumping in and do testing. So placeable object loader is just going to be here to do bars. Here, let's pull this open. Is there anything? Yep, looks good. Bars. That's going to be methods. Methods. And we got accessors. So anything particular going to be in bars? Not really. Methods. This one's probably going to be the most. So it's going to do, we go back to placeable object, reader instant, find object placements. So find object placements. So this gets a list. So this is still using some of the, stat list. So this is still, what the heck? That is not what placement reader, placements, it's still making stat list. Okay, I didn't rename some of this, did I? Should have really renamed some of this. Stat path does not inherit from anything. Let's do Control RR on stat path. This dude is gonna be not that. Okay, so for each placements. Okay, so we have to decide how big a test we really want to run right now. Um, because there's a few things we haven't done yet and tested. One would be placeable object still has actually run this test. And second, it doesn't absolutely hasn't run those tests. So before we get much farther, I want to go and do those ones. So let's do that. Let's do that. It's assign pose, assign rot, save. Let's see what our actual versus expected is, which is, I'm hoping, suppose I should move the capsule in the scene just to make sure, because if it's at 0, 0 and then moves to 0, 0, we won't notice it moving. So let's go ahead and do that. So what's your location? Your location is 0, 0, so let's just choop. And then it'll get pulled towards the center, hopefully. Yep. That goes back because it's okay. And you see its rotation goes away as well because 0 is the rotation that's in there. Perfect. And we should look at the consoles and see no debug errors where there were errors, because there shouldn't be any errors with the way we built it. Which means we can go back and start building for the next testing, which is to actually instantiate objects given the list. So that's find placements. I have a feeling I built that way for testing only. So, because I don't like the way it's stated. How do we get back to where that was? Object factory, abstract factory, this thing, placement reader. Okay, so stats were not RR. OBJ LST. And then we have I'm just gonna go straight placement path. So I updated some of this, but not this specific thing. Specific. Base name. Oh, control RR. So PLO placeable objects. OP for object placement. equal base name, so this should be changed to an ID. AID, because it'll make it easier later. That's all just changing names. If you're okay with the names, go ahead and leave them that way, but I needed to change this for my frame of reference. So placement path. So the custom gateway, find object placements. So I did not like where that was. So this is finding object placement singular, is what I'll do. Crap. And then C, Control V. We'll just change this to placement, which will change this. Then, no, not that. We'll change this one to be like a, what do we want? Like a list of them? Let's just do a list. So something like that. And that, and then I can go like list, a list. And since I don't need to check for it, I'll just return Control X, Control V. And we don't even need to store it, we just need to throw it. What's an object list? Okay, something's not quite what I want then. Just walk it back with Control Z. Okay, so an object placement, oh, this is not a list, this is an object type that is that has a list or has an array? Has an array. So it has an array. What do we want to do with arrays? Um, okay, so I can do Control C, comment this line, and I can do did I put link in here? I'm gonna use system.link, which is with a Q. And why would I do that? So that I can go here and after my thing do dot, because this is an array that it returns, right? Nope, it's a list. It's object placement list type. So I need the, this is a lot of work to do in one line for no reason, huh? Custom, what is it? I need the object type, not the frickin', I need this type. Object placements dot toList. Then I don't store a bunch of extra crap in memory. Just what it takes to get it from A to B. So we're returning the JSON utility. So that's Unity's utility for JSON. Using the from JSON object placement list, create an object placement list object, custom gateway instance, read JSON file, placement path, using the path. Then we're accessing the object placements, which is the array inside the list object, and sending it to an actual list, which is then returned to whoever called it. So now we finally have what it takes to see a list of object placement objects. This is why custom save takes so long to make. This kind of stuff. Because you could do it in binary and other people have, and it's takes significantly more time. Takes even more to put it in a text file, like a CSV file. Because then you have to figure out your own writing and everything, unless you have somebody that has those programs. But for us humble soloers who have teams of like 3 people, maybe, not the case. So object placement, yeah, so find object placement returns the object placement. This would be for our thing. So can do the thing, factory, create item. That's all the thing. So abstract factory doesn't necessarily need to do anything. If this is null, it doesn't do the thing. What would it want? Okay, so yeah. Oh, hello, peoples. What a nice message. I'll definitely check that out if I get Discord to work again. Ow, my knee. I got lots of student classroom stuff set up, so it's going to be really, it's really cluttered there right now on the Discords. Yeah, I got like Discords for like 3. I don't even know how many projects I have on there right now. But yeah, thanks for the message. And I'm glad you're enjoying the streams. I have not gained my focus back on where I was at, so we create the item. One thing to look at would be placeable objects. So all this works. That's all beautiful. Bug-free tool, beautiful. Factory item. I'm just kind of having a hard time thinking of where I should put the ID. Do I want an ID in the factory item and just eliminate that placeable object? Or do I want it to be like the flow of it is just kind of hard to figure out. Like, so if I have it in object place, not in reader, placeable object, loader, no, placeable object here. So setting it up kind of separate where the factory could have this ID and could not have this ID, and if that ID is null, I suppose technically the reference is like an ID, so it's not super important if the object isn't going to be saved out and whatnot. But I just keep coming back to it, and it's like I both do and don't want to do the work on that. You know? So it's kind of where I'm at with that one. Placement target pose 0. So maybe I will just keep with that, even though it is slowly eats at me a little bit on that one. Placeable objects, generic factory. Yeah, this is the part where I'm kind of just thinking through what I need to do here, because there's not a lot that I can. Abstract factory, this should be perfectly fine. And we throw an ID. We can always throw in more IDs. Actually, it makes it really easy if we just factory ID. It's placeable object. I could just put some of this stuff in a separate constructor. Not constructor, separate method call. Overload it. Yeah. Could overload with a separate call. What would that be? Placeable call, which might be better. Because I was thinking do object reader, and then we have placeable object loader. So the loader calls, so we haven't even touched that yet. Abstract factory pulls in that. The objects, I'm just thinking if a placeable object really needs it, or if we could overload some methods and put it in factory, which then I could give it the ID, then I wouldn't need the placeable object at all. Wouldn't need any of this, because it would be in the other one. And that would be on a separate method call. But then that kind of makes that pointless, and what it does make it is a factory item. Yes. Yep. That's what I wanted. Yep. Boy, that was a roundabout frickin' okay. ID. Um yeah. That's what the answer is. The easy answer. So then we can still use it for abstract while not having to worry about it later. Yeah, that's the answer. What do you know? It's one of those moments where you feel incredibly happy that you found it and incredibly sad that it took you nearly as long as it did. Um, which I guess is most programming, anyways. You're always like really accomplished at the end, and you're really sad that it took so long to get all the bugs out of it. Um, but I mean, in my experience, pride of getting it done far outweighs the irritation of testing and so on. And I can override this, but I don't think I will. So now this runs this way, which is nice. So this is nice, bug-free tool. So then factory item would also work really well. So this all just works normal now, and then placeable object. Um, what's our factory item? I'm probably just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna public override. Public override. Now this matches rotation already. Transform. I actually might have to think about this a little bit longer. It's just got a lot of moving parts that are unseen. If I could just move them around in Unity, this would be no problem, because then it just turns into a design question. Versus, it's still a design question, but this is kind of a reference, so it's a lot harder to reference things by typing in letters than it is to drag and drop. Generic factory. What can we do here? Yeah, I'm just kind of. So if we put the ID in there, placeable object factory, this essentially is useless now. Well, not really, because placeable object factory, unless we get it to the point where we can throw a placeable object down, because we can't do a method call. Well, we can do that method call, actually. So we could run a create item. So this is our base, right? So let's grab our base. Control C, create item. So if we throw open another one, what do we have? We have a new TF string, but this one's going to take in a placement object, I think. Is it, yeah, space, PLA placement object? PLCO BJ placement object. We got string ID. So then this overload will call create item, which I'm essentially going to extend a little bit. Let's grab, all right, so it would still do this. Or would it? Object loader, poolable objects. So this would be assign route, assign pose. This snaps to bug-free factory item. Use factory item. So this one could essentially have that, and then if we pass in a poolable object, we do the same thing, but we have reference to this, and we can pass that into create item maybe. And this guy would create a new item. This is duplicating a lot though. At the same time, it's duplicating it if we make a new class too. I have a bad feeling about this. So, very bad feeling about that. At any rate, so we have the transform first, which is a transform we're snapping to, which this would no longer be important. Because we can create the object basically anywhere then. So let's do this. Instantiate create info. Let's do all in zeros. Vector3.0 to be exact. 0. And yeah, I'm not going to finish this tonight. It doesn't look like it, but vector3.0. Did I do that wrong? Yeah, I did. How can I do quaternion dot Yep, works for me. Quaternion identity. So this is gonna be placeable. Placeable objects. PLC OBJ. So we have placeable objects. Why did I do it that way? Because it just keeps going. That's fine. Create info. Use factory item. This is going to be an absolute mess when I open it next week. Just absolute red squiggles, definitely. I do need to pool it. I don't need create info. New thing would then come into placeable. Am I doing this wrong? It's just a similar name issue. Placeable object, factory item. I don't want to. Generic. Create item. I just walk back. What was the last step I typed in? Okay, it was just putting placeable object in here. Why? I need an object placement. Is that? Let's go to placeable object and just grab that type right there. That's better. A placement. That's more what I want. So now this exists. Create item. So I would create an item, and I'd normally put a TF in, but I think I'm gonna put a placement in. Yeah, I'm gonna put a placement in. I'm gonna follow create item, control click. I'm gonna I did dupe that code a little bit already. Create info is changed. Placement. So basically this is all just wiring downhill. Throw in a cable and let it roll until it hits the bottom where we hook it up. So I do want this to do FI. I still need the pool. But the create info, which was the transform, I no longer need because I'm getting my placement info. Ta-da. And now we go into the factory item. The factory item, we have to basically do this plus, so we do that again. And overloading, so we have a game object outside active true. Pool, we do that, and then transform position, we're not doing that one. This one's turning into a placement. That's not right. BJECT objects placement. Object placement. A object placement. And I know this one's going to be hard to follow in general, but apologies, and it is just kind of rough to do this one because I'm trying to do abstract factory with a bunch of pre-existing factories and kind of having to change some stuff up. What we got? ATF.position. Well, this is a object placement is a C#. It would return it wouldn't have a vector 3 as read red, right? So it would have a Serializable. Am I gonna get any kind of penalty if I have more? Yeah, I probably am. Not the place to do that. Well, I do have to generate a new vector 3 every time anyway. So what's the diff, right? Let's generate a vector 3 here. New vector 3 generated using a placement that x. Whoa. Okay, I need to refresh. TP and TR. Okay, got it. So this needs to be a TP, and this will be the same a placement dot TP y, and this will be a placement dot TP z. Um, ATF. So then rotation's a little bit different. Do I even remember that? That's gonna be a quaternion. Is it just Euler? Yes, it is just Euler. Euler, which I'm just gonna quick grab that, Control C, B, and it's gonna be R, Y, whoop, R, and R. Those should be the correct vectors and correct quaternions. It's 40 after, so we'll still just do some polish and cleanup. And I'll talk through some stuff as I throw my little screen up. How's my thing work? How's it? Trying to think of it. Yep, this one. Yeah, so thanks first time chatter for your message. I'm terrible at screen names. Aula 3, it looks like. So thanks for stopping and chatting for a bit. Oh. As I bumble through my words. Yeah, so I'm just gonna leave that up while I do the last few things here. I'll talk through them, but mostly I'm just skimming to make sure everything's okay to save up and not be totally broken when I open next week. It looks like we're actually looking at changing factory item up a little bit, and what I'll do as part of that, and then I'll switch back for actually. Not sure I like how that was looking, because I do need to put regions in, and you can't see the end line if that's on. So this uses a placement. So let's just go ahead and do a region. region, and this is going to be stuff for, let's say, yeah, object placement. Stuff for object placement, which is fine, and separate those two words because it's supposed to be in English, not in camel. So we got some cool stuff here. Use factory placement, TPX. What would this be? Trying to think, what would it be? This is all fine, this is all fixed. So this should work correctly, but what does it call? Actually, that pretty much factory item. If this guy gets called, then that equates that, which also condenses our immense amount of crap on screen. Huh, that's interesting. So because of the way I did that, all of this class is now redundant. And the reason it's all redundant now is because of 4 lines over added to factory item. Because we receive a placement, and with that placement, we set all that information, and we also, from our, I don't think it's from abstract factory, it's from our regular factory, right? Generic factory. Create item. I didn't do that right, did I? Yeah, I did. That's the transform, that's the normal one. Then we come in here, we look for it, and only if all these things match, we do the thing. And then he creates an item, which is a possible factory item, runs all the way down. We throw in a placement, an a placement. So then actually if I loaded an ammunition with a placement, it would spawn and just fall to the ground and probably spark, which is kind of fun. Well, not fun, but it's not hindering anything, unless it was a destructible floor. I think that's actually pretty good. It's looking, yeah. We should be able to just throw some, yeah, and we'll do links and link up and testing next week probably. It would cut long to do it today for the time slot, so we'll go with that. And I'm in dire need of salad, so there's that too. What's the thing here? Yeah, where's the thing? Come on. Yep. So thanks for visiting in the chat. I'll definitely look up that Discord. If I can get mine to work a little bit more reliably. And yeah, we'll probably pick up this next week. yeah, pick this up next week about where we're at and try and get that testing done. Make sure all our objects spawn correctly. Might just make some objects to be able to spawn and drop, and then we'll finish that loader, which is actually what, like 2 lines of code. We'll just make it do something on start, not make it too difficult, just doing some testing and then go from there. So testing for sure, progress for maybe. With that, if you're watching on, oh, OBS, you are a lagging. Um, if you're liking the videos, um, or want to watch live, you can watch on Twitch at Jib at twitch.tv, Jib at BFP, or you can catch post recordings on youtube.com, Bugfree Productions, um, where there's even more game development and some fun art streams. Which the comic's only 1 page away, so that might get finished next week. If not, I'll probably finish it because it'll be like shading or something that's left. So sometime during next week that'll get fully finished, whether it's on stream or not. And then next week, Wednesday, we'll pick this up again. Don't forget to like and subscribe on the YouTube channel, and also to check out the hit a follow on Twitch if you want to drop in live, or even just for the recorded videos, even though they're not there that long. We'll go ahead and get this going, and the JSON is almost done. With that, I'm going to wish everyone a bug-free night.